everyone. It's exciting to see all of you here. Today's interview, I will be speaking Cantonese with Peter, and then Chris will translate my questions and Peter's answer afterwards. 咁好多謝香港電影剪輯協會嘅侯以琪小姐，同埋好多謝我哋偉大嘅張耀忠師傅今日出席啦。
So we want to welcome Peter to our BFE session, and we've got the Hong Kong Society of Film Editors Hong Kong's Vice Chair Kiki Hao with Peter.
Great, thank you so much, Chris. 師傅其實有冇人叫你 Peter 㗎？
少，多數都叫師傅。
Okay.
So most people, very few people call him Peter, but most people call him like Sifu, master. Just like in the kung fu films.
Peter, 我都會應你嘅。
Yeah,
he'll respond if you call him Peter as well.
你係幾時開始啲人叫你師傅㗎
？1971年嗰陣時開始。
幾多歲啊？你嗰時？1971。
嗰陣時未師傅嗰陣時都20幾歲㗎啦。
He was already called master when he was like 20 something.
師傅，咁我哋正式開始㗎啦喎。
好啊。
好啦，第一條我哋簡單啲咧，就係問你幾多歲入行啦，同埋係點樣入行嘅？
我17歲，經過我爸爸，因為我爸爸係電影圈裏邊做嘢㗎嘛，介紹我入去嘉禾唔係電貿公司啊。
Cathay Film Production. Yeah.
Okay. So Peter started his career when he was 17, when his dad introduced him to the Cathay film company to start working in the industry.
師傅，我頭先唔記得咗敬你一杯。你17歲入行，就開始剪接，然之後20幾歲就有人叫你做師傅，我敬你一杯先。咁頭先你講
just want to give him a cheer because he started at 17 and he's already like being called masters in his 20s. It's worth a salute.
咁咧，你開頭咧係咪跟有2位師傅㗎？你話？
我一開始咧就跟黃朝喜師傅，咁咧就入電貿，然後到國泰，跟住咧 close 啦，佢哋國際公司 close， 咁咧就到嘉禾，我就開始咧，點解咧？機緣巧合介紹介紹我識到姜興龍先生，佢咧就係香港一共有2種剪接啦，一個就係粵語片時代嗰啲剪接，一個咧就係國語片。國語片咧就比較叫做高級啲。
哦。
So he by chance he was working with. Well, he's working under Wang Qihao, the editor, who was cutting a lot of period pieces, I think.
Mandarin.
And then by chance that he sorry? Oh, Mandarin, yes, Mandarin films. Yes, Mandarin dramas. And then when the Cathay film company closed down, it was by chance that met with Cheung Yao-Chung, is it?
Yeah.
To follow him and learn from him and work as his assistant.
Yeah. So, and just to add that, in that period of time, Hong Kong has 2 streams of films, Cantonese film and Mandarin films. And, the Mandarin films had a slightly higher reputation than the Cantonese films. And of course, it all changed when Bruce Lee's film came out later, but we haven't reached that point yet. 師傅，咁想問下你係點樣好似第2套你就剪李小龍嘅《精武門》㗎喎？點解咁快就可以剪啲大戲嘅？
嗱，我講俾你聽咧，我 17歲開始學剪接，咁咧就經過咗電懋國際公司咧，已經差唔多去咗幾年時間㗎。然後到嘉禾咧，我喺有5年時間咧，就係、都係做助手嘅啫。就姜興龍先生指導，即係開頭嗰啲嗰啲咩唐山大兄啊嗰啲係咪都係姜興龍先生？
哦。
So for 5 years he was working. In cafe company, he started working for Golden Harvest, and even then for 5 years he was only working as an assistant on mostly drama films. And we're asking whether how come he came to edit the first Bruce Lee film, well, his first Bruce Lee film, when it's only his second credit.
你師傅點樣先決定啊？呢、個徒弟佢可以啦，佢可以自己去剪精武門啦。因為唐山大兄之後都好紅嘅李小龍，咁第2套係咪應該好大壓力咧？剪嘅時候？
嗱，壓力未有啊，嗰陣時未有壓力，即係當時咧就係因為即係嘉禾公司暗地裏請到姜龍先生做嘢，即係唔啱啊！即係咁啊，老闆咧希望我上嚟，扶我上嚟做到，咁我就剪第一套，就係猛龍精武門。
即係你意思係Raymond 周文懷先生係咪啊？
有3個老闆，一個咧叫做何冠昌，一個叫梁峰。何冠昌咧就中意我，即係佢話我哋自己公司應該有自己嘅剪接，要俾耀中試下，咁我就做第一個啦咁啊。
So okay, that's quite hard to translate. So basically, it's saying that the Golden Harvest, they had 3 bosses there, and one of them really looked out for him and recommended him to editor because they think that one of their editors had to be the editor of Fist of Fury in order to. So that's why he had this big chance to big break to edit a Bruce Lee film.
So just to add, the boss called Leonard Ho. Thanks, Winnie. Winnie is our film archivist here, so she would point out whatever I said wrong. So just to add a little bit of context to that answer. So back in the, I think late 60s, early 70s, you know, Shaw Brothers, the famous Shaw Brothers. And actually Raymond Chow was the second, you know, the left-hand man of Run Run Shaw. And he wanted to leave Run Run Shaw and start his own film company. And then so he started Golden Harvest. And Bruce Lee was the first star. He tried to push. And I think Big Boss was not the first film, but second film, was it, Winnie? And then, yeah, so Gang Heng Long, Sifu's master, was not their own editor. So they wanted to, you know, everything their brand name. So it's like a startup. So Bruce Lee was the actor they want to push, and then Peter was the editor they want to nurture. So just to add that. 好，師傅，咁點解何冠昌咁中意你咧？可唔可以講下？
可能我對工作嘅認真啦。
點樣認真法咧？你同其他學徒有幾多學徒啊？嗰時？
嗰陣時未有學徒嘅。
我得你一個。
一個嘅啫。後期。工作量越嚟越多，咁咪要請啲學徒嚟幫手啊。
咁就變師傅啦。
係，明白。Okay.
So, we're asking how come Leonard Ho picked him to edit it, and he just said he was the only assistant at the time. there's no, and only until much later when they hired more assistants. So there's no competition.
咁師傅，你覺得有冇少少運氣嘅？即係除咗努力之外，有冇少少運氣嘅性質喺度咧？
有啊，
有，
即係
如果你入咗邵氏就唔係咁玩法啦，係嘛？
係啦，嘉禾因為要同佢打對台，咁咧就，所以我哋要好勤力去做嘢，拍啲戲出嚟啊咁啊！我哋每部戲都好有勤力剪嘅，即係嗰陣時。
Because Golden Harvest and Shaw Brothers were in competition at the time, so they at Golden Harvest had to work really, really hard to compete with them and wanted to show that they're better than them. And so it's...
Find a 運氣嗰樣嘢。
Oh yeah, and so it's a bit... I think he's saying that it was a bit of luck and hard work that gave him the chance.
Right. So just imagine it was like a new startup fighting against Warner Brothers at that time in Hong Kong, not only because they produce a lot of films, but also the government support Shaw Brothers more than Golden Harvest. So it was a very difficult fight at that time. So Fist of Fury and Big Boss were two, miracles, I would just say. 係師傅咁咧，可唔可以我哋講咗你點樣入行啦？咁不如講下第一套同李小龍合作係點樣嘅經驗啦？
佢有嚟展示室，即係大家好似朋友咁咯。佢又即係嚟睇下，咁啊走咗去啊，咁啊。
即係唔會坐低嘅。
佢冇坐低，佢個人本身就已經係唔周身喐噶嘛，佢唔會坐低。佢到任何一個部門都係咁，去錄音室，配音，佢都周身喐，即係拉下保衞架啊，咁嗰啲咁嘅嘢。
So talking about what was Bruce Lee like working with him. And he said he was very much like a friend. He just came in and out of the edit suites. He didn't like to hang around too much because that's just how he is. He doesn't like to, he can't sit still. And so he did the same thing in the picture edit or the sound edit. He just comes in and go, but never stays around for too long.
你哋唔會坐埋一齊睇嘅？
好少。
即是咧係咁講補充翻，即係李小龍即導演嘅戲咧就會多啲接觸啦，但係咧都係師傅剪完之後咧，佢嚟睇一睇，咁可能之接觸佢又好好嘅，佢就會同師傅去食下飯咁樣，又會請師傅食飯，但係你要佢咁樣坐喺度睇住師傅剪片就唔會嘅，咁就係咁嘅意思。咁因為精武門頭先你講緊精武門啦，所以師傅就以為精武門嗰套戲啦，咁因為係羅維導演。唔係李小龍導演啊嘛，所以咧就呢套戲就接觸得會少啲，但係後來佢導演嘅話就會多啲咁嘅意思咯。係啦。
Okay, so in terms of in reference to Fist of Fury, because it was directed by Robert Klaus, so Bruce Lee didn't hang around too much, but when it came to his own directorial work. He would spend more time watching the films, but still wouldn't sit in the edit suite watching over Peter doing his work. He will only watch it once the edit is done, and then they can have a chat. But also, they were just really good friends. They would go out and have meals together, and so but that's later. It's not Fist of Fury.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood 係呢個。昆崙塔天奴啊，佢喺電影入邊就講到李小龍咧係非常之一個自大啦，同埋認威啊，好認威認氣嘅一個人啦，一個演員。喺你心目中，即係你接觸過嘅李小龍係點樣㗎
？So the question is about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where Quentin Tarantino portrayed Bruce Lee as rather cocky person working in Hollywood. So what was he actually like as a person?
我知道咧，李小龍咧就對我哋員工咧就好客氣嘅，對高級啲嘅職員咧就好囂張咯。我都見過。
點樣
So
囂張法 ？Sorry.
So Bruce Lee was really lovely to the staff, the crew. He was just a little bit more cocky when it came to the seniors, so senior managers.
有咩故事可以分享下？對，
好似講去食飯，我做到咁上下，李小龍叫我食飯，我冇車喎，我又唔識揸車，佢話唔得嘅，唔緊要，我打個電話得㗎啦，佢話打去俾 Raymond， 即係我老闆，咁啊話俾我老闆聽，我老闆話我開緊會唔得閒喎，佢話唔緊要，你唔得閒，我揾邵逸夫嚟車我同佢兩個出去食飯咁啊！嗰陣時咧，我同佢多數去 coffee house 太子道。
So Bruce was really lovely. I would ask him to go out for dinner, but Peter would say like, "Oh, I can't go because I don't know, I can't drive, I don't have a car." And Bruce would just say, make a phone call and call for someone to come and pick him up. I think
Raymond
he mentioned
Chow.
Raymond Chow, yes. Yeah, Raymond Chow, his boss, to arrange someone to come and pick him up.
But Raymond said, "Oh, sorry, I'm busy. I'm in a meeting." And then Bruce would say, "Okay, then I'll call Roman Shaw." So Roman Shaw is the enemy of Raymond Chow. 師傅，咁咧，我想問下剪接上面就係以前香港武術片嘅剪接手法同李小龍電影嘅剪接手法，我覺得好大分別。因為李小龍嘅電影咧好多長鏡頭，一個鏡頭咧就影晒佢嗰啲動作，但係以前咧就好剪，即係剪好多先至去，即係去表現嗰個特技啦，同埋表現佢哋飛嚟飛去嗰啲嘅功夫。咁係咯，有冇難度咧？其實你喺適應上面，
因為佢每一個動作咧，佢唔會用鏡頭去配合，即係一路做出嚟。
因為實打。
真功夫。
嗯。
So in particular, Bruce Lee's films have a slightly different way of filming because he was using real kung fu rather than cheating by camera angles.
你之前咪講過佢幫你嗌加人工啊嗰啲都可以。
都有，即係喺片場啊，所有員工都加人工㗎啦。咁有個女工冇得加喎，咁佢又得叫老闆過嚟，然後話俾佢聽呢個女工要加人工，一加就加500。
So Bruce was really lovely. He fought for their all the employees' salaries as well. In one particular case, there was a female staff that they refused to increase the salary, and so Bruce immediately called over the boss to come over to argue with him, and straight away they increased her salary by 500 Hong Kong dollars, which is a lot of money back then.
哦，咁剪接
另外，譬如李小龍導演同其他導演嘅分別，即係有冇啲咩唔同啊？咁你可唔可以講下？
應該就冇分別嘅，佢拍翻嚟係乜嘢，我哋幫佢剪。
As a director, Bruce Lee was very much like any other directors. There's not much particular difference between them. They just shoot something, and he cuts it.
龍爭虎鬥，有美國版同香港版啦。咁我想問下，第一次同荷里活美國導演同埋美國嘅隊伍啊團隊去合作，咁入邊有冇啲困難咧？
唔得㗎，佢哋美國咧，佢哋自己嘅剪接師喺酒店剪，我哋唔可以成日去參觀嘅。
So when it came to Enter the Dragon, which is an American co-production, and the Americans brought over their own editors to cut in the hotels, and so the Hong Kong editor, well, Peter, couldn't go over to watch how they edit. It's completely separate.
合作拍戲咧，人哋話事啊，我哋唔出聲啊。
係， 咁後邊你有剪到香港嘅修訂版係咪啊？
修訂版改少少嘢啫嘛。
嗯嗯。
So in the Hong Kong version of the Enter the Dragon, Peter only made slight changes over the film, but because the Americans insisted on the American editors to cut the films.
我想問死亡遊戲其實你係有份剪㗎嘛係嘛？
死亡遊戲咧，其實咧個戲咧就拍咗1/3到啦。
We talk about the Game of Death, Bruce Lee's last film. He died after they only shot a third of the film, which Peter did edit, and the rest they used something else to cut into to make the rest of the film.
我聽你有一個訪問講到嗰套戲好難剪嘅，你可唔可以講下點解咁難剪？
有好多係揾替身啊嘛，所以咪難剪咯。即係角度啊，樣樣嘢都要即係睇出嚟唔得就要改過。
下穿崩啊！
同
So
埋
it was a
係
very difficult film to cut, is because they used a lot of doubles in order to piece it together. So there was a lot of shots that you couldn't hide that it was a double.
我見你仲用好多其他你之前啲電影，即係喺猛龍過江又攞一個 shot， 跟住喺甚至用李小龍生與死嗰套紀錄片都有 shot 嘅喎。
咁佢死咗，我哋就要想辦法點樣完成一套戲，其實根本好辛苦。
係咪你諗出嚟㗎？用其他電影嘅 shot？
有埋導演一齊諗㗎。
It was an idea that came up between him and the director.
Out of four films that made him famous, Peter cut 3 of them. So I think it's he was one of the main guy behind the fame of Bruce Lee. So let's move on to Jacky Chan now.
After Bruce Lee had passed away, Golden Harvest, Raymond Chow wanted to promote Jacky Chan. So what was it like working with Jacky Chan?
冇咗李小龍咧，因為出現咗個成龍，我同佢合作咗好多年。
好，即係有冇一個最深印象嘅故事同成龍合作？
成龍咧就比較有工作狂，即係佢好中意咧就係佢喺度拍戲收工，要打電話俾我。我依家翻嚟啊！你收工，你冇收工啊！你喺度等我。佢要睇剪片，我幫佢剪咯，剪到3更半夜，俾佢嗰場戲剪好啦，俾佢睇 ，OK， 收工。收工都4點啊！
So Jacky Chan was a workaholic. He worked really hard, and so Peter also had to work really hard. And he would come and watch it in the middle of the night. The latest that they worked to would be up to 4 a.m. in the morning.
我聽你講咧，之前講過成龍拍戲係冇劇本喎，係咪啊？
佢唔係冇劇本，佢即係有個故事大綱喺度，即係成個戲嘅劇本咧就未必有啊。香港後期有好多戲都係睇到故事嘅啫，好多戲都係咁樣啊。
即係冇好仔細嘅分場啊。
係啊。
So a lot of films in Hong Kong don't really have a script back then, and in particular, like Jacky Chan's film as well. So they have an outline, a basic plot of it. They just don't have the individual scenes worked out.
但係如果冇劇本冇對白，你點知道邊場戲佢講邊句對白行先？點樣剪咧？
So if you don't have a script, how can you cut the films with the dialogues? But Peter's talking about like when he was an assistant, he would have to read the scripts and basically read it so well that he would memorize all the dialogues and all the whole film.
嗱，呢啲咧就叫做工多藝術，工多咩藝術啊？其實我咧剪片嗰陣時咧已經睇人哋啲嘴型㗎啦，即係每一場戲對白講乜嘢㗎？我睇啊，我知道喺嗰度 cut 咗佢啦。
場記都有寫㗎。 因為其實咧香港電影啊，譬如場記會話俾你聽，今日拍咗幾多場啊嘛。咁每場嘅對白其實都有寫嘅。咁做佢哋剪接，尤其是剪菲林咧，就要睇咗大概會有咁多句對白啦。咁佢哋就好由以前開始就已經識得一條菲林裏邊大概邊個位開口嘅，佢哋一眼就會望到㗎啦。咁樣咧就會大概數嘴型啦。佢場記會話俾佢聽有幾多句對白㗎嘛。咁佢就數到嗰個口型嗰個字數啦，咁佢就會 cut 啦。咁呢個係佢哋已經好熟嘅嘢嚟㗎啦。
This is a really impressive thing. So, during the shoot, the script supervisor would write down the dialogues that they've filmed, and then when the film is processing, end up in the edit suite. They've already been trained well enough to read their lips in order to work out how many dialogues they've shot and per roll of the film, and then work out where everything is in order to cut it. That's really impressive.
所以係冇對白劇本，即係冇一個已經寫好晒嘅劇本。Okay.
Yeah. So they don't have a script with full dialogue written. It's all written on set.
即係我哋香港電影早期咧就會比較快嘅時候啦，佢有時咧講對白嘅現場演員咧就會數1、2、3、4、1、2、3、4、1、2、3、4、1、2、3、4咁樣嘅，所以佢哋咧亦習慣咗剪菲林嘅時候咧就睇口型啦，就數差唔多啦，呢句對白就剪嘅，跟住後期配音室嘅時候咧先至會作翻啲對白配翻落去㗎，呢個係好得意嘅。
So this is a very unique method of filmmaking in Hong Kong, which dates back to earlier maybe silent movies when they would acted just like mouthing numbers, saying numbers so that they can fill up the time of maybe. And so they're used to just working on the lips, the lip syncing.
So so they would count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on set. So it's not actually got dialogues. And then after the filming is done, they would find some voiceover artists to fill in the gaps with actual dialogue. So they would write the dialogue afterwards without the actual script on set.
所以佢產量咁多就係咁解啦。
I think it's up to like 300 films a year Hong Kong were making. During the peak times, America and Hong Kong were making the most films, up to around 300 a year.
So I just want to point out one thing to some, friends who are not in film industry and not familiar with film editing. And so Peter is actually, he never cut on the computer. He only cut on film. So that's quite an impressive thing because I never touch a film, straight myself, like actually cutting on film. So I can imagine it's really difficult back then because you can't make mistakes. 師傅話，我就啱啱講緊咧，就話你從來冇用過電腦剪一套電影嘅。咁你即係你剪咗200幾套電影啦，人生。咁平均一套電影係剪幾耐啊？其實要用幾耐時間剪？3個禮拜。Okay.
So Peter has edited over 200 films in his entire career, and usually they take about 3 weeks to cut one feature film.
How long it takes usually for you to cut a feature film now?
Between 6 to how many ever months, right? 6 weeks to how many ever months.
So at least 2 months.
所以佢有10幾個下手咯，上次佢講。
10幾個唔係7個咩？
唔係啊，最高峰嗰陣時7個。
有啲去咗外國啊嘛。
7個。
In order to have that speed, Peter had at most 7 assistants working with him, and some of them have gone overseas now.
咁咧，成龍，你話拍成龍嘅戲最高峰有幾多尺菲林話
？40萬尺。以前咧香港拍戲咧就2、3萬尺咧已經係 over 㗎啦。後尾咧越拍就越多，越拍越多。由成龍啊、吳宇森啊開始咧就拍到幾廿萬尺，即係40萬尺嗰啲咧就由佢哋拍出嚟。
So a lot of action films it's quite common to have maybe 20,000 feet of film stock being shot. But with Jackie Chan, it can go up to a lot, like a couple of times more.
To stop it.
可唔可以講下簡單任務嗰個即係嗰個過程係點樣？
助手就好似你頭先講乜嘢，跟住順。
佢話即係助手就係順便啦，幫佢每一日順咗啲分場啦，同埋啲分 shot 啦，然之後就師傅就自然咁樣嘅。即係40萬尺嘅菲林咧，其實等於即係人哋10套戲嘅，差唔多10套戲嘅時間嚟。
喺個酒店入邊剪啊？
係啊，特登
So when they went to Australia, he only brought one assistant along with him.
跟成龍出去外國嗰個拍攝嗰個經驗係點樣？即係你會唔會去片場度睇佢拍啊？定係你就好忙咁喺剪接數，即係喺酒店度剪片？
就係有一次咧，我去到現場喺50幾樓喺度拍，佢話 OK 嘅，咁啊爬入嚟喺外邊爬入嚟，咁我話你冇安全帶啊？乜都冇啊！跳完就爬入嚟50幾樓，
即係都幾癲嘅，即係所以你親眼目睹晒成龍嘅特技係冇做安全措施嘅。
嗱，外國人嚟睇佢拍戲咧，話佢黐線嘅 Grace 即係
Face
人哋外國已經係用藍背景嗰啲。
Okay, so he's saying that people from overseas think Jackie Chan is crazy because at the time people are already using blue screens while he's doing all these stunts with no harness and no protections.
咁喺你嘅即係個人意見入邊，李小龍同成龍兩個龍比較，邊個係比較好嘅導演啦？同埋你中意同邊個合作多啲咧？
兩個導演嘅風格唔同，李小龍咧就應該即係興識硬橋硬馬嘅，成龍咧比較花巧啲咁樣。
So in terms of what's the difference between Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee as a person and also as a director? And he's saying they're different, but Jackie Chan is more kind of complex in, I guess, his style. And Bruce Lee is more just like a strong, tough method and style.
你有同過吳宇森啦、袁和平啦、洪金寶啦，喺咁多個武打導演入邊，你覺得邊個你最中意合作嘅咧？其實
So out of all the action directors, including John Woo, Yuen Woo-ping, Bruce Lee, and Jackie Chan, who did you like working with most?
其實佢哋個個導演我都中意嘅。
師傅，你唔
He
可
just
以
like all
咁
of them.
你唔可以咁
我分唔出啊嘛。
咁邊個最好合作啦？不如咁講。
個個都好似好朋友咁。
嚇，咁
They
其
were all
實
just
係咪
really good friends. Like all of them like good friends.
反而咧，譬如我幫呢個導演做得過分嘅，做得即係好辛苦嘅，成龍啊嗰啲就會出聲啦。佢係大導演啊，我哋唔係啊，咁即係我冇分別嘅，個個都得冇所謂。
我幫你問一下，師傅你覺得即係咁多個合作嘅導演咧，邊個拍嘅嘢咧你最好剪咧？
應該係洪金寶嗰啲。
點解咧？
即係點講啊？佢好舊，即係好舊式咁，即係按住次序拍。
So out of all the directors, it's probably Sammo Hung who he liked working with most because he was much more the workflow was smoother. Everything was working out much simpler and easier, less difficult. So we're moving on to later on where he edited horror films such as Mr. Vampire, the series of Mr. Vampire, where they require more special effects, and what that was like.
嗰啲故事咧最緊要編劇，即係編劇編得好咧，就我哋剪都容易啲啊。
咁
So it's all down to the script. If they were written well, then it makes it easier to edit.
特技方面咧，香港咧就有專門做特技嘅特技師傅，我哋唔需要啊，我哋淨係話俾佢聽。呢個鏡頭要做乜嘢，佢哋想辦法去做㗎嘛。
你話係咪當時
啲電腦唔同啊？依家
嚇
So it's different to like editing on computers now these days. When they were doing special effects back then, they just told these companies that were specializing in special effects to do whatever they wanted to do. So they weren't really involved in doing the special effects.
咁係咪嗰個過程係你拍攝嘅時候，你話個背景係白幕定藍幕，然之後拍成菲林係咪？
係要靠藍幕同或者白幕咧，就 Mac 嗰啲畫，即係嗰特技畫面同埋主畫面 Mac 埋一齊咁咪 OK。
So they were already using green screens and blue screens to do composites.
咁但係有咧，即係啲鬼片咧飛嚟飛去噶嘛，成日都係。咁以前冇得即係冇得抹咗佢噶嘛，以前。咁會唔會有啲穿崩啊？好多穿崩位好難剪啊？
冇得抹㗎，即係靠咩咧？靠燈光，即係暗啲，唔好咁光，咪見唔到條威嘢咯咁啊。
You talk about like in terms of how they remove the wires, but back then they didn't have the technology to remove the wires. So it's all down to lighting to hide away the wires. In terms of like how people are flying, doing the flying and floating ghosts, I think.
喺你剪接即係200幾套電影入邊，你覺得最難剪係邊套咧？最大點同埋點解？
應該咧就係省港奇兵。有個故事大綱俾你，每一場戲佢咧就係4-5部機炮，日去做呢個一場戲一到晒，由頭帶到落尾，咁咧就你想辦法剪，最 ending 嗰陣時咧7部機就差唔多。哇！
嗰個槍戰真係好勁。
嗰個裏邊城寨就準備要拆㗎啦嘛。借呢條棒，咁啊佢爆炸又乜啦，哇，好亂㗎。
So we're asking which out of all the 200 films that he's edited, which was the most difficult to edit? So which I can't work out which title, the English title.
The long arm of law.
Okay, the long arm of the law is the one that is he found the most difficult because they were shooting on seven or so cameras, blowing up the what's it called? The fortress, yeah, the Kowloon Fortress, yeah, Kowloon War City, which is this old forbidden kind of area that it's a lot of gangsters or the triads like to hang out in. I haven't actually watched that film.
Oh, right. So yeah, basically that film is about I think a bunch of bank robbers from China. They illegally migrated to Hong Kong, go to Hong Kong to rob a jewelry shop. And that film was crazy because they didn't have a full script, as usual. It's just a outline of the story. And they shot mostly on 4 cameras. And at some stage, it was an ending. If you have watched that film, it's crazy. So a bunch of, the police came to shoot AK-47, for like maybe 5 minutes long. and they shot in Kowloon War City, which was going to be torn down. So they lent the village, they call it the village, to the crew to film. And so they shot on 7 cameras, and with no sequence, it's just a mess. So they had to, him and the assistants had to sort out what is this. So it was difficult because of that. And of course, they won the best editing in Golden Horse Film Award and also Hong Kong Film Award that year. So that was quite achievement. 師傅啊，其實我好想問，即係你俾一啲年輕嘅剪接師一啲建議，如果想成為一個好嘅剪接師，要有啲乜嘢條件？
啲建議嘅嘢好難講。
鼓勵下佢咯，鼓勵下佢。係啊。
係咁上下。咁你快啲講啦。我咪最多鼓勵下佢哋咯。嗱，我有2個學生咧。喺目前嚟講喺香港好出名，唔係喺上邊亞洲好出名，一個叫張家輝，一個叫邱志偉，呢2個比較突出啲。
咁有咩條件咧？點解咁好咧？
做得到咯，唔係勤力嘅做嘢。
做嘢勤力。
Talking about like in terms of what advice he can give to young editors, he has 2 assistants who now are very famous in Asia. And sorry, you go.
Cheung Yao-Chung and Yao-Chung, we can look them up online. But yeah, the quality is more important.
Yeah, and he said that like why they're good is because they cut a lot of films and they are very hardworking.
我哋係咪可以開放俾台下發問啊？而家
Yeah， 因為我哋睇下啲頭先咧just want to we're going to go through the chats and look through the questions now.
Okay, Robbie can help maybe.
Yeah, I've kind of copied them over on a document, so it's easier.
Thank you.
Quite a few. Would you rather me just ask them in English and you go and translate it? Yeah. So we have a first one about Project A, where it says, in Project A, during the Clock Tower fall, you put together 2 totally different of these amazing stunts. What was the idea behind it? I also noticed that the first take is probably Mars, Jacky's stuntman, and then it's Jacky, and then another take in the outtakes. Could you talk us through how many takes Jacky did and what rushes did you have to work from?
你有幾多個 shot 揀咧？其實當時
都係4、5部機嘅啫。
但係佢跳咗幾多次啊？
一個 take 落啊嘛。
佢一個 take 就 OK 啦。
OK， 咁佢幾耐佢
？OK， 即係佢拍一個 take， 但係咧就有4、5部機，有 angle 就4、5部機。
但係我睇咗啲網上訪問，好似話佢跳咗3次喎，因為佢唔滿意啊嘛。
係咪啊？佢跳咗3次。
佢跳落嚟咧，佢都驚啊！因為咧，我連我都爬上去睇過，原來咧喺我一回頭一望咧，個人就喺個帳幕出邊，其實就唔使驚，應該係嗰個位置啱啊！但係當你落去嗰陣時咪咩咯？佢唔肯放手啊！喺個鐘樓人哋叫佢放手，我都唔得，驚啊！
啊！但係佢就跳咗一次啫。
咁啊，最後尾咧，到差唔多 last 嗰個咧，就佢個師兄洪金寶經過，你喺上邊做乜嘢啊？跳落嚟，我咪落咗嚟。OK，good。
一踢過。
一踢過。
To answer the clock tower, Peter said that Jacky was very scared of when he was right up there doing the filming, and he held onto the rope tightly and refused to jump down. And Peter had previously gone up to the tower to have a look, and he thought it was very scary as well because it's very high up. But when he saw the landing mat, and so he thought it was actually should be fine, it should be quite safely easy to land on safely. And so when during the filming, they had about 4 cameras on filming that, and Jacky refused to jump down. So Sammo Hung came over and screamed at Jacky, telling him, like, there's nothing to be scared of, like, just jump. So Jacky did it, and then so they did it in 1 take.
Yeah, because Sammo Hung is a brother, like more senior to Jacky. So when a senior shout at you, you have to jump. I think I watched some commentary on YouTube saying he did it 3 times, but according to Peter, it was only 1. So I think I would trust Peter.
Mm-hmm.
So,
thank you, Sifu. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sifu. Okay, next question.
So there's actually a 3rd question from Radek saying, what was the last film you edited and why that was your last film?
The last film.
So why did he end his editing career, basically?
Oh, okay.
That's the IQ delete.
Yeah. 師傅，你最後一套電影係邊套啊？
咩教室啊？
辣椒教室。辣椒教室。
係啊。
點解決定喺嗰時就係退休咧？就唔做咧？
嗰陣時工資已經絕對即係唔怕係
轉電腦啦。
佢就唔學啦電腦。
因為嘉禾當時候已經唔拍戲啦。
So yeah, Peter's last film was the 2000 IQ duet, and he retired after that because Golden Harvard was no longer making films, so that was their last film, and also they were already moving on to editing on computers, so that was the time to decide to quit to retire.
Cool.
Thank you for the question. Robbie, next.
I'll make a selection because I think he answered some of them already. So from Baldwin, asking, did you do daily assemblies to show to the producers even when the shoot schedules were so short?
咁咧，師傅，你即係剪一套戲係3個禮拜嘅時間咁短啦，咁你仲有冇時間去話剪一個初剪俾個監製睇下先咁樣嘅？
好少。
其實我哋香港電影咧，監製咧，除非佢over 咗個時間 over budget 啦，因為佢多數咧都係以導演為主㗎，即係除非好似王家衛導演咁，又係監製咁樣，先至會有監製睇呢樣嘢㗎。所以監製好少參與嘅。係啊，好少㗎。OK， 所以係上畫先睇嘅。應該係有一場係優先場，即係佢哋俾老闆睇嘅時候咧，去睇嘅啦。即係導演都 OK 咗，然之後先俾監製老闆睇，然之後先至再放一場優先場俾業界睇。多數係咁樣嘅。
So in Hong Kong, it's very director driven. So usually they cut the films and then only show to the producers when at preview. After the director has locked and approved the cut, so it's very rare that producers would get to watch his film before then. 午夜場啊，我哋一定要去睇嘅。
如果上映嘅時候咧，即係正式老闆都 OK 啦，咁業界嗰場戲都 OK 啦，咁跟住有片商 OK 啦，咁就會即係佢哋就會去放映一場叫做星期五嘅午夜場，星期六嘅午夜場。咁星期六嘅午夜場咧就俾觀眾大家買飛去睇啦。咁當時候香港咧就會好多觀眾咧就會睇星期六呢個午夜場啦。咁我哋嘅職員就會去睇完發覺嗰場戲邊個笑得開心嘅，或者邊場係俾人鬧啦，咁佢哋就會即時就翻轉頭去修改嘅修剪。
So they when everyone has approved the film, the edit, then they would used to show a special midnight screening on Saturday to get audience feedback. And if anything that the audience didn't like, then they will quickly go back and make some edits on it.
可唔可以
But
講
that's
下？
after everyone's like the producers all approved it.
可唔可以講下咧？當時如果睇午夜場唔好反應，你哋要點樣做啊？
反應唔好就要收錢，咁啊就唔係我去收，我就翻嚟剪一個 copy， 然後派啲助手出去咧剪其他嗰啲 copy。
有幾多個 copy 啊？最多？
嗰陣時差唔多成20個 copy 㗎啦。
咁啲助手就要踩住架單車去收 copy 翻嚟啊？
都要出去啦，由朝到晚㗎。
So if after the audience screening, after the midnight audience screening, if there's any things that they needed to change, they will have to come back. The assistants will have to go out, pick up all the films, and then come back and Peter would make an edit on one copy of the films, and then his assistants would then duplicate that on the rest of the versions or the other films.
係，我想問第二日上畫係幾多點鐘啊？最早
2點後
12點，中午12點。OK， 所以你有12個鐘頭去剪。
Yeah, so after the midnight screening, then they have roughly 2 hours to collect the films back and then make the changes. So, and before the next day's 12 p.m. Screenings, so it's only 12 hours to change all the different copies of the film.
That's crazy. Okay, so
Right,
next question.
So from Shafi, she asks, what have been the changes in the Hong Kong film scene, positives and negatives, in your opinion? And do you see any potentials for the Hong Kong industry, maybe also with such an international population now? Do you have any advice for those of us in the industry in Hong Kong now and for internationals maybe wanting to collaborate with Hong Kong, and any wish or dream for the Hong Kong industry, basically the situation in Hong Kong?
師傅有朋友想問你，對於而家香港嘅電影業同以前嘅香港電影業比較，你有啲咩意見呢？同埋有冇話覺得有冇啲咩寄望呢？
佢已經冇參與唔知。
你對我哋香港電影嘅期望咯，你睇下。依家
疫情嘅影響好難講。
對我哋香港電影嗰啲咧？
我希望鼓勵到佢哋拍好啲嘢啊！
好唔好啊？有啲戲你話
都有嘅。
邊個導演？邊套近期睇邊套香港電影？
我多數睇西片。
邊套西片啊？你講。
我中意睇西片多，因為西片佢有啲電腦特技咧，係香港人做唔到啊！依家做到啊，嗰陣時做唔到啊。
OK。
邊套咧？最近邊套？
我唔記得咗。
係咯，
Okay, Sifu is very diplomatic.
But he says he mostly like watching Western films because they have a lot of special effects that they couldn't do in Hong Kong. But now they can. But I guess he's talking about like before when there was a lot more differences.
And yeah, with the COVID-19 situation, it's a bit hard right now. But yeah, he hoped Hong Kong people try to make better films. But he didn't really comment on what he thinks about the current situation. I think he's trying to be diplomatic. Is it? 係咪師傅
冇，因為我中咗風之後咧，行動唔方便。
就少咗去睇嘢，
少咗睇。
再加上咧，我哋香港即係中國人都有一句咧，不在其位咧，就不謀其政啊嘛。咁即係所以你問呢句，即係到依家香港電影師傅有咩意見，佢就唔係好方便或者好適合講啦。 因為佢已經冇退咗休啦嘛。
明白。
Yeah.
我明白。
So I think it's just a Chinese culture because he's no longer, he's retired, so he's no longer in the industry. So it's a Chinese culture that it's better not to get involved and comment on the future because he's no longer involved in it.
Okay. The Chinese way, yeah. Robbie, next. Do we have time to go through all the questions?
I don't know. I don't think so because there's a lot of them, but I'm trying to select the ones that I think he didn't talk about much.
Sure. Thank you.
I like this one from Baldwin saying if he ever practiced Kung Fu himself, and if so, what style?
Okay. 師傅有朋友問你有冇自己練過功夫啊？
冇。李小龍嗰陣時已經成日同我講啊，叫我練下功夫，我冇練過功夫。
佢叫你跟佢學啊？
啊
Amazing. Yeah.
So he's never practiced Kung Fu martial arts, but Bruce Lee did constantly tell him to practice, to learn it, but he just refused it. He just refused it completely.
點解啊？係咪冇時間啊？因為
係啦，時間係第一啦，第二我啲體質，因為好似佢咁啊，會練到咁大隻，唔可能。
So he didn't have the time to practice, and also he didn't like to train his body to be like Bruce Lee. He doesn't like it.
he's so built up, so ripped. He's like, I'm not like him. Okay, next, please.
So question from Ferg. Did you ever have offers to direct, and did you ever have that desire?
咁咧，阿 Fergal 問你有冇曾經有人叫你做導演咧？如果有即係你有冇想做導演嘅心咧？
成龍曾經叫過我做導演，咁我就話俾佢聽，我唔做導演。點解唔做導演咧？拍出嚟嗰套戲如果唔好咧，我點樣做剪片啊？冇得剪片㗎嘛。
So Jackie Chan did suggest to Peter to become a director, but Peter thinks that if he directed a film that wasn't very good, he can no longer be an editor.
Good point.
咁你想唔想先？唔好理佢成敗先，你想唔想？
唔係我想，但係我覺得導演嘅拍力好辛苦啊，因為佢好多樣嘢都要顧慮到啊嘛，所以好辛苦啊做導演。
He was interested in it, maybe becoming a director, but being a director is too difficult. It's too tiring because you have to be involved with everything. So he prefers not to.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, there's quite a few actually people asking if he has a favorite film that he's edited and if he has a favorite like action scene or scene that he remembers specifically or particularly.
Okay.
For a year.
師傅頭先都講咗你最中意警察故事啦，係咪？咁有冇一場戲你特別印象深刻？你好中意嗰場戲啊？
就係第二套啊！喺山頂衝落嚟嗰個係咪第二套啊？
係警察故事2。
係啊，香港人拍戲咧就同外國唔同嘅，即係外國人咧就可能即係安排好咗嘅，香港人落去啦，咁就落去噶啦，其實好危險噶嘛。
No health and safety. Yeah, go ahead.
So he out of all the films he liked Police Story most. Where they were driving down from the top of the hill in Kowloon. And he said that the difference between overseas filmmakers is that everything would be well planned out, but in Hong Kong they don't do that. So they just kind of winged it, and it's very, very dangerous.
There is no health and safety kind of thing.
There's no planning.
Okay, yeah, let's more.
Well, let's see. Matt asks, what was it like working with Yen Wu-ping?
Yeah, sure. 師傅有 Matthew 呢位朋友問你同袁和平合作係點樣㗎？
袁和平咧合作又唔係好多，但係咧呢個導演咧就啲 佢好中意用 zoom 嘅，任何鏡頭用個 zoom 咧就可以帶去第二度噶啦嘛，睇唔到。
嗰個 zoom 咧，其實係鏡頭拍出嚟定係剪接做出嚟？
鏡頭拍出嚟嘅。
好中意用嗰時好中意用呢個 zoom 噶嘛，係咪啊？
佢最中意啊。
Okay.
So he only worked with Yung Wo-ping a couple of times, but he says that Yung Wo-ping had a particular style of doing a lot of zooms in the camera, in camera rather than in the edit, and so that helped you can just cut to anywhere with the zoom.
Yeah. Okay. Next one, please.
I'll merge two from Joyce and Renee saying how long on average would you have to edit a film and what would be the working hours and pay like back then for those sort of films?
I think he mentioned already, like it takes about 3 weeks to cut.
Okay, yeah, in fact, I thought he kind
But
of...
let me just ask about the pay.
Yeah, the working hours, because he said he was working until 4 in the morning with Jacky Chan, but I don't know if that was an average thing. Like,
yeah. 師傅，咁你咧嗰時嗱一套戲就剪3個禮拜啦，咁你平均每一日個工作時間係幾點至幾點，同埋當時人工高唔高㗎？
我人工我唔高啊。
幾時人工？
嗰陣時我大概4、5千蚊啦。一個月。
咁工時咧，工作時間咧？
我翻到屋企咧，太太啊同埋啲仔女啊，全部瞓咗覺。即係我起碼2、3點鐘翻去。
夜晚
都起碼10幾個鐘頭。
一日做10幾個鐘，係啦，半夜2、3點先翻屋企。
So it typically works around minimum 10 hours a day, and his pay was probably around £400, and he every time he comes home about like 2-3 o'clock in the evening, his wife and kids already gone to bed.
一定超過12個鐘。
一定啊！
Oh, it's definitely more than 12 hours a day.
Yeah, so
有200幾部戲咧，係嘛？
Yeah, that's why they managed to do 200 or so films.
師傅，即係我諗我哋今日都差唔多啦，但係我都想講下就係即係好多謝你，好多謝你，同埋好感激你今日，因為我哋真係好尊敬你。你見到大家都今日頭先最多有70幾個人嚟聽你講嘢啦，即係大家都係慕名而嚟去聽你嘅分享啦。咁之前咧，我哋前幾個月我哋就剪咗一套李小龍紀錄片，咁入邊就用到你嗰3套作品啦。即係好彩你剪咗嗰3套作品，如果唔係李小龍冇乜電影資料留低嘅。冇啊！
除非粵語片時代，佢細路仔嗰陣時咧就有幾套。
Graham, are you here? Can you unmute yourself just to tell Peter how, what's your experience like cutting from his film and make your documentary, Be Water?
Hi. But yes, I wanted to say how impressed we were with all of the editing from Peter, because as we all know, I think the editing really makes the performance, even in the case of Bruce Lee, where I know whilst there was minimal editing, there was actually a lot of skill that went into making them so successful. So yeah, I've just really enjoyed the chat, and I won't take up any more time just to say thank you. So I'm sorry, that's probably really disappointing, but
no, it's good.
But,
good. No, have no question.
Okay, yeah, cool. Carry on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, guys, unmute yourself if you have more questions. We have run on to 2 hours now.
Hi, can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure. Where are you? Oh, yes, Scott. Hi, Scott.
Hi. Hi, Sifu. Thank you so much for speaking to us. I learned how to edit by copying your movies. And I'm a big fan of Last Hurrah for Chivalry, the John Woo film. And I was just wondering if there was any tricks that were done in camera, like under cranking and obviously the Hong Kong zoom that you talked about, or any tricks in editing that you did to make those fight scenes look more dangerous?
佢話啊呢位朋友 Scott 咧就話佢學點樣去剪電影，應該話抄你啲電影，即係抄你啲剪接，從而去學點樣剪。咁佢就好欣賞，特別欣賞豪俠嗰套吳宇森嗰套豪俠。咁咧佢就想問你喺剪呢啲打鬥場面啊、動作片嘅時候，有冇啲咩技巧，有冇 tips 可以俾？點樣剪到佢哋危險啲咧？即係望落去驚險啲咧？
其實嗰啲戲咧個指導好緊
武術指導
要啊，因為每一個鏡頭有嗰啲指導嚟控制㗎嘛，唔係我哋。
但係你之前都有講過，譬如多兩格嘅分別啊嘛，
哦，
即係你可以
咁我睇到嗰啲咁咯。
即係可能頭先各位朋友就真係好中意你，佢話佢係你 big fan 㗎嘛，咁所以咧佢好想學下點樣你可以剪到咁緊湊咧。哦，
呢啲就係技術嘅問題咯。
即係佢就係你介紹一下你嘅技術介紹俾佢聽啊嘛。
好難講喎，第一時間講俾佢聽，未必講到，要長時間咁啊，我可以教到佢咁啊。
咁我補充一下啦，因為師傅剪接嘅時候，即係都係剪接係好難就咁講就教到對方嘅。咁點樣多一格多兩格又有唔同嘅分別咧？其實你就係要睇啊，咁你要現場睇到佢剪，然之後再去模仿，可能會好啲啦。咁所以可能係咪咁講咧？你應該係試唔同嘅 cut 先，即是睇cut 多一格 cut 多兩格，你試下邊一個你睇起嚟最好睇。係啊。
Basically trying to ask him like any kind of advice in terms of how to be a better editor, and he says that it's very much to do with like your skills, your talents, and then in terms of how do you get better at it, and he suggested like you can try just trimming one frame here or 2 frames there, and then watch and see the difference, and then it's very hard to just explain to you how to be a better editor in like in this situation. He will have to sit with you and slowly teach you how to do things.
And especially when it comes to action films, he said the choreography and the action director was very important, and that's why Yuen Wo-ping as an action director, the film the martial arts scene will be great because he's great at directing those actions. So if the directing of action on set is great, then the editing will be easier. So I have to look up who did the choreography on that last Hurray's Chivalry. I don't know actually, but yeah.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, but yeah, I agree with that. And my own opinion is when some of the action directors are not very good director, but they are better when they only focus on action. So, but I think John Woo is great. He's not an action director himself, like as in he's not a martial artist himself, but he knows how to work with the choreographer. Yeah, but yeah, hi Scott, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, mentioned to Sifu about your passion for his films. Right, okay, any more? Precious chance. Okay, so should we wrap it up then, Chris? Okay.
I've got one little point actually. Maybe have you discussed much about the sound aspect of things, or did Peter not really do much sound editing? Is that worth a quick chat?
Sure. Quick one. 師傅，佢呢位朋友想問你，你當時即係有冇剪好多聲音剪接喺入邊咧？淨係即係你係冇剪聲嘅嗰時，淨係剪
冇聲嘅。
哦，所以啲聲剪得唔好就唔係你嘅。
即係成套戲係冇聲嘅，你剪嗰陣時。
係啊，好似默片咁。
Oh, so when they were editing, it's completely mute. They didn't cut the sound. So it's just like a silent movie.
And then someone would do the sound after his offline cut. And so I said, okay, so if the sound is not good, it's not his fault. Sorry. Okay. Winnie 有冇嘢講？
Yeah, just want to say thank you. 張師傅啊，我係 Winnie 啊，我同你食過飯嘅。係啊，以前喺資料館訪問過你嘅。We have done interview with you before when I was at the Film Archive. So thank you very much for an amazing era of the 80s and 90s for Hong Kong cinema, because those were crazy times for our, film production. No matter what, no matter action and the editing pace, by doing more than a dozen films per month in that way, without sleep. The people are crazy. They do illegal things. The bombing were illegal. They were doing car racing and they were jumping from many floors down. These were action era and incredible comedies. So thank you, Sifu, for Hong Kong cinema in our prime time.
Yeah.
多謝啊，師傅，你哋嗰個年代嘅電影係香港最特色嘅年代。做好多好瘋狂嘅嘢啦，有洪金寶啦，有成龍啦，即係有李小龍呢啲咧，即係近乎係瘋狂地拍戲嘅。你哋嗰代係好精彩嘅一個年代。
I feel like I missed out the best time of Hong Kong, and so I'm very, really excited and glad that we managed to pull this together. And thank you, British Film Editors, of course, to supporting this, and Society of Hong Kong Film Editors, to make this happen. In spite of COVID-19, we managed to gather people from everywhere. So yeah, 師傅你唔明白我哋對你有幾咁欽佩同埋呢個激動嘅。
Thank you。
師傅你食咗飯未啊？好啦，你快啲食飯啦！我諗住 we have to release seafood for dinner. It's now what time? 9 p.m. Almost 9 p.m. in Hong Kong, and he hasn't had dinner. Sorry. Okay, I will come back to Hong Kong and have lunch with you. 我哋翻嚟香港揾你飲茶，請你飲茶。多謝晒你先。
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a good dinner.
Okay, thank you so much everyone for coming. Okay, yeah, that's it.
That was fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you. Sorry for interrupting you sometime.
It's okay. I think it was good. That's a good partnership.
Amazing.
Thank you, Robbie. Thank you, Fergal.
Thank you for your translation. It was excellent.
Yeah.
So guys, feel free to say anything, feedback, how to make it better. This is our first bilingual interview done.
No, it was great. It was great.
Thank you, guys. Give feedback. How to make it better next time, if there is a next time.
I don't think you could. I thought it was excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really well. Yeah, well done.
Yeah, thank you so much, Winnie, for coming. I would like to, introduce Winnie as well. So it's such a great chance to have you with us. Winnie works for Hong Kong Film Archive before. Now she's
not now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I spent 20 years working on Hong Kong film history. And I love Hong Kong cinema. So thank you, Caleb. You did a great job, and hope you have more such talks in the future.
Oh, thank you. I've missed the best time in Hong Kong already, so I'm gonna catch the tail of.
Yeah, come back and we'll have lunch.
Oh yes, of course. And I actually want to invite John Suk-ping as well, William Chang of Wong Kar-wai's editor, but he's more art director, more a production designer more than an editor. But he does both. Do you know him?
And I don't know him personally, you know, he's too famous to have, you know, just, no, I don't know him personally.
But he was on my list next.
But recently I did have a chance to chat up with a still photographer. You know, Cheung Yao-Chung is a still photographer for Bruce Lee films.
Yeah, I know.
He, you know, we lost contact of him for 6-7 years, but his disciple, Yun Go, Mr. Fong, Mr. Fong is the still photographer following this Bruce Lee photographer, and he actually did those developing in the dark room before, you know, with him together. And I have a nice chat. And he also talked about the film that Mr. Peter just mentioned in Australia. You know, they were filming in the under the water world.
Oh yes, that's crazy.
So, and there was many stuntmen there. And you know, Simon Hong did a lot of choreographing that is amazing. And it is wonderful that Australia allowed them to do in like something like an ocean park.
Yeah.
To do so much running around and jumping, you know.
With the real shot and the seal. He was clapping hands and like directing Jackie Chan out, you know, like leave. So it's a crazy scene.
Yeah, they talked about a lot of those action scenes that were amazingly done and with a lot of bravery from the stunts. You know, it is pretty amazing.
I know. I don't know why we don't have a documentary about that.
I think they did one, but he forgot where the documentary, the making of ended up in. You know, they had making ofs, but we cannot find them at this moment. We don't know who got them after Golden Harvest closed down. Somebody have taken them.
It's a shame. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I want to do this. Because you know, it's so hard for you know, people like you, archivists, to find the archive.
To find clips, to find really the moving images is difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, and I wish I could have, you know, have met Peter earlier, because now with a stroke he doesn't remember a lot of things, and you know, he was struggling. I see he was struggling to explain, and luckily we have Kiki to, you know, to explain. Give things with context, but so little interview about film editors.
Yeah, but the Hong Kong Film Archive did have interviewed him during our Golden Harvest retrospective, so we have quite a few hours of interviews with him earlier.
I need to go back to Hong Kong to find that, because I can't find it.
He talked a lot about Jackie Chan and Simon Hong, and also about the era when they were really doing film. You know, they have to cut and you glue them together, and that era is very different.
Would it be possible if, you know, when I go back to Hong Kong and get a copy of that and make a copy for British film editors?
You mean the oral history?
Yes, like a private.
First of all, you have to get Peter's approval. On paper. Yeah, probably yes. So if you have the approval from him, yeah.
Okay, great. So it's possible we can have after interview Q&A, complimentary interview, and post it on BFE. Great, sure. We have
great.
Permission from Winnie.
Winnie,
yes.
I just have a technical question. I'm just dying to know the answer to. A lot of those martial arts films from the 70s, they look so fast, and they're so fast and furious. Were they undercranked? Like, did they shoot in like fast motion? Or were they just really that fast, the actors?
Oh, both. I think both. I think in the 70s, in the 70s, the kung fu films, if you have people like Samuel is very smart and clever when he's directing action scenes. So because, you know, he was already an actor at you know, very young age, and he knows cinema throughout. And he is a very clever boy. So, and he knows how to do all the acrobatic things. And from what I learned from the stuntman, if you have Samuel on the set, like before you heard how he yelled at Jackie Chan to jump down, because he knows it's safe. He can judge that it's safe for his friends to come down. And then he is very good in getting the right angle for shooting. That's very clear. You know, for action scene, like Dong Wei, another stuntman, and another choreographer, action choreographer, who is also very famous, they know from which angle to film a kick and where to pause, to have a pause, to make that excitement, you know. In Chinese Kung Fu, the best way is to have a contrast. You don't always move quick. They always have this waiting time when they do, you know, when they do a fist or a kick, and they always have that anticipation time, like when they drill a little bit with their toes, you know, on the ground, and then they also have this powder mechanism. So they use powder to when they went on the floor, so that when you kick, there will be some powder effect to come up in front of the camera, so you have an impression that is much stronger. And they know where to put the camera because they were the stuntmen themselves before, and they know in which angle that the action look best. And then you imagine they can do anything, you know. But the pacing of the editing, I don't think they always change. For the old style action filmmaking. It was only when there were film directors like Patrick Tam, who is very good in editing and also in directing. They like, and also Wong Kar-wai, they like to play around with just one frame by frame cutting, you know, taking out one frame per minute, per second, or 2 frames per second, which is, you know, they want to have like a special editing effect, but that was much later.
Oh, so they actually cut frames out of
yes,
out of the middle of a shot.
Exactly, regularly. And even Choi Hak likes to do that first. Choi Hak, you know, many of Choi Hak's films is much faster than the others.
Yeah.
And that is his style, actually. And but it's not so good. You know, many critics commented that Choi Hak's film is not for, you know, really proper viewing. They want to, you know, delusion you into believing in the action, but, you know, sometimes he just want to avoid you to see the wires.
Yeah, that's amazing that they can cut.
You know, they're just tricking. They want to trick your eyes for actions that they can't. For example, the costumes, or for example, they want to cover up the wires. That's why they make it so quick.
Yes, Scott. Sorry, I didn't particularly mention the underground. I know you're dying to know that, but I know people. You know, he wouldn't. I know he wouldn't. You know, answer your question like he does. So
that's all right. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much, Winnie.
Yes,
no problem. Yeah,
that's why we need you here. Yeah, it's almost 2.5 hours, guys.
Thank you for all of your patience. It's a long talk.
Yeah, I don't know what to say more, but yeah, like, it's amazing to see all of you, and Chris, do you have anything to say?
No, I really enjoyed it. Thanks everyone for coming.
Yeah, and I think we can all go to lunch now.
Yeah, lunchtime.
And we dinner.
Dinner.
Yeah, everybody go eat.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Kelly. Thanks, Chris. Okay. It's great we're making all these new friends around the world. It's a good outcome of lockdown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we will post a recording. I don't know when, but yeah, we'll post it.
We'll sort that out later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye
Bye,
bye.
everyone. Bye bye.
Nice one. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
That was absolutely amazing. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.